Well, good evening. Thanks for joining us at this budget town hall this evening. This is probably the most important time of the year for us in the city of Frederick in terms of setting the agenda for how we're going to spend the city's money over the next fiscal year. And it really is an opportunity for the public to weigh into that process. Doing a town hall like this is new for us. We've always had a pretty robust public hearing process, but getting out to the community before we actually presented our mayor's proposed budget, doing this kind of a town hall is new for us. So thanks for being a part of this evening. I do want to acknowledge the presence of Alderman Derek Shackelford, who is here this evening as well. We're going to provide a little bit of an overview of the budgeting process, a really quick glimpse of the current fiscal year's budget, and then somewhat lay out the timeline for how we'll go about adopting the budget for fiscal year 25. But really what we want to do is hear from you. We want to understand your priorities and interests and have that be some of the information that can inform the city's budget process. It's about trying to help the community understand the budget process a little bit. I'm fond of saying that almost nothing that we do in government is intuitive. And while you might budget in a household way, you can look at the city's budget and see the size of that document, and it may be overwhelming. And so a little bit of this process is to hopefully demystify that as well. We do want to provide, as I said, a little bit of a budget overview. And so it really is a collaborative process, a process that starts in earnest at the staff level in the fall, where they're beginning to think about their priorities for the upcoming fiscal year and the budget requests that they're going to make. We do a budget priorities workshop, usually in late November or early December, which is an opportunity for the Board of Aldermen and the public to lay out some of their budget priorities. By the end of December, the departments have to have their requests into the budget office. And over the course of January and February, I meet with our directors and various managers throughout the city to review those requests that have come in and to talk about their priorities and the things that they want to see funded in the upcoming budget. It's a pretty collaborative and open process, but the timelines that we work on are somewhat rigid. We don't have always a lot of flexibility in maneuvering. We get assessment data from the state by a certain date, which is what informs the largest piece of the budget. We have to actually we have to present a budget to the Board of Aldermen by April 1st. That's required under the city's charter. When we adopt the tax rate in the middle of May, we've really fixed the largest single revenue source for the city. So that's often the same night that we will adopt the budget after a number of public hearings. Statutorily, we have to get the budget approved by June 20th. If the Board of Aldermen doesn't approve a budget by June 20th, then the last budget that was proposed by the mayor, and I have an opportunity through that process to present amendments, the last mayor's proposed budget would become the budget that goes into effect on July the 1st. I have until May 14th that I can continue to make amendments to my budget and present those to the community and to the Board of Aldermen, and those amendments then comprise the mayor's proposed budget. After the 14th, the power, if you will, shifts from the mayor to the Board of Aldermen. They have the sole ability between May 14th and June 20th to raise or lower any budget line items, any revenue sources. They have a lot of flexibility in there. I will say again, one of the things about the process that I think works pretty well is it's done with the mayor, the Board of Aldermen, and our budget staff all around the table at the same time in the room. So we're there on the administration side to provide as much information as we can to the Board of Aldermen to inform the decision-making that ultimately rests with them. We are required to have a balanced budget. So when all is said and done, our budget revenues will equal expenditures. We wanted to provide just a little bit of a budget overview to give you a sense of where the money comes from and where the money goes. So this is a pie chart of our operating revenues by type. That single largest area, this is the current year's budget, almost $90 million, a little over $89 million, is property taxes. Property taxes, some income taxes, but largely property taxes. The other large area of revenue is charges for service, and that's primarily our enterprise funds, our water and sewer enterprise funds, but it also includes any services that we could bill for in other departments for certain things that we do. We have licensing and permit revenue, various intergovernmental transfers, and then a number of other smaller departments. On the expenditure side, it's split up amongst a lot of different departments. The single largest department that gets an allocation is the police department. They got a budget allocation this current year of about $41 million. A number of these departments, when you put these pie pieces together, make up our Department of Public Works. And so that, in terms of a functional category, the Department of Public Works is the largest recipient of the expenditures in our budget. If you add up all of the numbers on this pie chart, you're going to be in the neighborhood of about $200 million. So that's our operating budgets, our enterprise funds, water and sewer, our parking funds, all the various governmental operations that we have, from public works to parks and recreation, economic development, our housing and human services. We reserve every year a fixed amount of our revenues as a fund balance, as budgeted reserves. And then we maintain a small contingency as well to sort of guard against unexpected expenditures that we might get. And so it gives you a sense that really at the municipal government level, certainly in the city of Frederick, we're largely service oriented. It is those services that our residents every day wake up and expect, whether it's being able to know that if they needed a police officer in the neighborhood, one would be there, or to have their trash collected, or the streets swept, or the snow plowed if we ever get snow again, to the work that gets done in operating a water and a wastewater treatment facility, and keeping a stormwater management system in place. Mowing our parks, maintaining our parks, providing that recreation equipment and those programs, all of the back of the house operations, a legal department, a finance department, a budget department, a human resources department, all of that goes into the various categories for our operating budgets. We wanted to provide a quick overview of what we focused on in fiscal year 2024, which is the current budget year, which was to provide some additional support in our police department to continue to address an aging police vehicle fleet, positions in code enforcement, largely to support the introduction of rental licensing in the city of Frederick, to look at our sidewalks in the city of Frederick and do an evaluation. The RFP actually for that sidewalk evaluation is scheduled to hit the streets here within the next couple of weeks. And once we have that on board, the whole idea is to evaluate all of the sidewalks across the city in an effort to try and understand better how we can allocate revenue and resources to those areas that may be both in need of sidewalk repairs, but also may have residents that may struggle the most to fix those sidewalks on their own based on the way our code is currently written with regards to sidewalks. And we continue to look at the use of technology to enhance what we're doing in the city of Frederick. So whether it's the deployment of security cameras in strategic locations or in parks and other places where we want to make sure that we can augment the work of the police department, we think that's really important in an overall public safety perspective. Commitment to a quality of life was another one of our priorities. So we looked at staff for park maintenance, as we've got 75 parks in the city of Frederick, and all of those have unique needs when it comes to maintenance and operations. We're looking at new playground renovations, particularly in some of our older, more established communities where we may have built that playground equipment several decades ago, and it's time to rethink what we want to do in those areas to to reevaluate whether or not the kinds of playground infrastructure that was appropriate 20 years ago is what residents are looking for today. So we've got an ongoing process to look at that. We have a partnership with our downtown Main Street organization, the Downtown Frederick Partnership, to provide these on-street ambassadors who serve as both people to help assist in emptying trash cans and general beautification downtown, but they're also a kind of concierge. When people come downtown and don't quite know where to go or need help or assistance and directions, they can be some friendly faces on the street to assist with that as well. And we're looking to always continue to upgrade our street light profile of what we're doing in areas of public art and in our support for the two city-owned facilities that we operate, the Weinberg Center for the Arts and New Spire Arts. We have a strong commitment to sustainability. That includes an ongoing commitment to our Rails and Trails program and enhancing multimodal mobility across the city of Frederick, whether it's bike lanes or working with transit on bus stops or dedicated bus operations. We're working on a project now on Route 40 that'll put a dedicated bus lane on Route 40. It's in the design phases now. We added capacity in this current budget year. Our sustainability department was a department of one for about a decade, and we finally added a second person into that to assist our manager of sustainability in doing a little bit more community outreach and engagement and working with community groups on road pickups and street cleanups and stream cleanups and things of that nature. And then we have a community promotions grant process, which is an amount of money that we allocate every year that we award to nonprofits through a competitive grant process. So it's an opportunity for us to make a small investment in a really diverse nonprofit community in Frederick that can use those resources to leverage much better and bigger enhancements than the city could do if we were trying to take those dollars and do it on our own. And we have an ongoing commitment to capital projects, which includes ongoing traffic calming. Speeding is a recurring concern in neighborhoods all across the city of Frederick. We have a traffic calming CIP. We're looking at simple ways at first that we can calm traffic, whether that's through striping or signage, things of that nature. But we're in the process now of looking at some larger design projects that might actually install infrastructure in a way to move traffic a little bit differently, to get people to slow down. That commitment to quality of life through our capital projects becomes really important. We're looking at our water and sewer and stormwater systems. It's critical infrastructure that we have to make sure that we maintain in the best way, particularly on the stormwater side with the intensity of storms that we've seen, more recently over the last, 5 to 10 years. We know that we have neighborhoods that are outfitted with older stormwater systems that weren't designed with those kinds of storms in mind. So we're constantly looking at ways that we can retrofit older neighborhoods to bring them into a better compliance with modern stormwater standards. Stream restoration projects is a little way in which we can make a big dent in improving the quality of surface water downstream from us. We want to make sure that we're not putting anything additional into the stream network than we need to, and carefully thought out stream restoration projects help in that cleaning process of surface water that may find its way to the Monocacy River, the Potomac River, ultimately to the Chesapeake Bay. And finally, we did an expansion of our composting program. We had piloted in a few neighborhoods for a year, but in the current fiscal year, we expanded it citywide. And we're really trying to assess how much of our waste stream, if we have a robust composting program, how much of our waste stream can be reduced. The kinds of things that we can compost are the heaviest pieces of our waste stream, and if we can successfully remove a large portion of that, we want to see if a program like this ultimately will pay for itself in a reduction of tipping fees that we have to pay for our solid waste when we take it to the county. And that's it. That is kind of a high-level overview. Again, over the coming couple of weeks, what's going to happen is we're finalizing the budget over the next couple of weeks. On April 1st, on or before April 1st, the charter says I have to submit a balanced budget to the Board of Aldermen. And so we'll present a balanced budget, and it'll be available to the community at that time. Beginning in April, we'll have about a half a dozen public hearings on different pieces of the budget. So we try and break it out by department. So one day we'll focus on the police department. One day we'll focus on some of those DPW operations. The specific categories and dates, all of that information is in the budget section of the city's website. So you can find all of the information. Those dates have been set. On or about May, the third Thursday in May is when we'll adopt that tax rate, and in all likelihood, also adopt the budget at the same time because of the way the process just tends to work. So we're here really to listen to you. So appreciate very much the opportunity to provide this overview. I am here. Our Director of Budget Administration, Katie Barkdahl, is here. Lacey Gordon, who is our Manager of Budget, is here as well. There are a couple of staff members from our Communications Department, Shawan and Shayna, who are taking a lot of notes on what we hear tonight. But really, this is for you. So what we would ask is if you've got a comment, a thought about the budget, to come forward to this microphone here. We're recording this and want to make it available to the community. If you have a question, I don't promise you that we can necessarily answer it this evening, unless it's an easy one, and we'll try. But really, the floor is yours. So don't all rush at once. If you've got a question, please. Which one do you want us to go back to? We'll keep this one. This is the division of the budget based on how we spend our money, which I think is maybe the most interesting when people want to look at how the dollars that we spend, where it goes. So the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
My name's Bob Esch, and I've lived in Frederick for a little over a year. And as you mentioned, traffic, we drive too fast in Frederick. And I know there have been some attempts to slow things down. For instance, on my street, they've tried to narrow the street a little bit. But I think one of the problems is the lack of a specific group within the police force that would do traffic enforcement. I think that I've gone to a few NAC meetings and I've listened as far as the problems, and it sounds like we don't have enough police people to do the job, and so possibly we need more police people, and specifically a specific traffic enforcement organization. Now, so I'm asking you to spend more money. I'd suggest one way you might be able to save some money is as we go through the drought last summer, I saw every week they'd come through Baker Park and mow the dead grass. And the week later, nothing else would grow, but they'd go through and mow the dead grass again. And I think, you know, it seems to me that we should be able to be a little more fluid and not so set in our ways as far as things like that. That's all I had to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, sorry for coming in late. It's kind of a little bit early for me, but I was trying to make it. As I said, I didn't see the presentation, but this is a very useful slide and goes back to a similar one that I had seen prior time that I had attended, maybe some candidate talk or something of that nature. And what it, you know, jumps out of that pie is the ginormous amount of money that is spent on the police department. And we just heard a comment as far as traffic, but the problem with spending that much money of a city budget in police is that it doesn't go necessarily to traffic enforcement. It goes to all sorts of things. The way that this department, as well as most departments in the country, if not all, are organized is that police does traffic enforcements, does enforcements of other things, and does not spending more money on police definitely doesn't it results in traffic safety. Traffic safety is a matter of infrastructure. You have to have better roads, you have to have cycling infrastructure, you have to have, you know, all sort of things. But certainly it's not the police that makes you safer, for sure. And so I had this question as to, so I was looking really quickly of the percentage per inhabitant as well as size of the expenditure of other city, and this expenditure is quite large. So I was just curious why we're spending so much money on police.
I said I would try and answer it if it's an easy question. I'm not sure that's an easy one or not. I will say that our police department in this community takes the concept of community policing very seriously. We are fortunate to, when you look at any of the numerical metrics on crime, that we're a relatively low crime community. It would be difficult for me to assess whether or not the correlation between what we spend on police and crime rates, whether that correlates. There are places that spend a lot more money than we do, and they don't have perhaps as favorable statistics as we do. So there's obviously, it's a very complicated dynamic. What we've tried to do in funding the police department is stick to certain ratios that have generally been accepted of officers per number of residents, and we're right in that sweet spot of between 1 per 500 to 1 per 1,000. When you look at a community of 80,000 plus residents, we have about 154 sworn officers right now. So there are always going to be lots of different ways that you can kind of slice the data to make the argument for it. What I can tell you is that consistently, when we're out talking to members of the community in the neighborhood, the relationship between our police department and our community is very strong. And so I think more than what we spend on police or how many we have, I think our residents most want to make sure that we've got a department that is responsive to the community, that has a strong reputation and works well with our residents. And I would say that we can probably always disagree maybe on how much or not enough or whatever it is. That reputation of the department and its relationship with the city residents is probably what matters to me the most when it comes to looking at the police and police expenditures. The idea of traffic enforcement is an area that I can tell you our police chief is very interested in the upcoming budget, and whether he'll be able to implement any of this before that, I don't know, is very interested in setting up a dedicated traffic unit. So we're looking at what it takes in order to make that happen, because we know that across the city that's a really important concern. But appreciate the question. Thank you.
My name is Susan Giacinto, and we're talking about continue to talk about the police and what the percentage. Is there an increase in percentage in funding from year to year for police? Was it 22.5% last year, the funding? Are you looking at additional funding for police, or is that?
So That's a great question, because actually, as we put the budget together, it is one of the things that we try and keep a focus on. I don't want to suggest that this particular allocation is the perfect formula, but I can tell you that we've been in this general configuration for as long as I've been mayor, and it predates my time in office. So while the percentages might go up or down by a few any given year from year to year, as a percentage of the whole in terms of the budget, these percentage allocations have generally been in kind of this same configuration. That means that as the budget gets bigger, yes, the allocations to every department go up some, and there is a natural increase year over year, just given cost of inflation, the cost of employees. They are the single largest piece of our budget. You can look at all of these numbers, but all of these numbers really reflect bodies that are out doing the work. And so that's salaries, it's benefits, it's contributions to retirement, et cetera. Those costs don't stay flat. So the budget gets bigger. That one large piece of the budget is also going to grow, and that gets spread out pretty evenly across all the departments. We try and stay and to keep these percentages somewhat in, connection to one another year over year.
Okay, but how can you have more dedicated officers for traffic enforcement if there's no new budget for that? And I've been in several NAC meetings, and we're very fortunate that the officers come and talk to us and give us data and statistics. And I personally feel very safe in Frederick City. I love it. But I think Frederick City has a speeding problem, and I think that because there are not enough officers ticketing people, people know they can speed in Frederick. So I kind of see that. I'm not just talking about my community. I mean, everywhere I go in Frederick, and I have a very disabled friend I walk over off Norva, and I mean, people are just flying. So the less you see an officer pulling someone over, giving them a ticket, the less you see the flashing lights, the less time people get a ticket. They know we can speed in this city and there's no ramifications. So with things growing and all, I feel like we hear a lot that there's not enough funding for that specific type of police enforcement. And I do respect the officers' time, and they're busy, and they do come to the meetings and all. So I appreciate that so much. But, with salaries and all, it just seems like, well, maybe how do they allocate? How will we give the police chief more allocation for traffic enforcement?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I'm certainly not the expert on this. I can tell you that there have been active conversations over the last several weeks about ways to use even the existing personnel in some slightly different configurations and deployments that will still keep officers on the street to do the things that I think the public wants them to do if they pick up the phone and call 911. But my understanding is they are looking at some strategies that may allow them to redeploy some of the assets that they have to build some dedicated traffic enforcement operations within the department. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that, and when we're able to announce something publicly, because we can tell the community what the plan is, we will absolutely let you know. But
Okay,
those
thank you.
conversations are happening. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we can certainly stick around for a little bit if there are additional questions that people want to ask. If there aren't any additional questions at this time, I really appreciate everybody's time and commitment. Thank you so much for your interest in the process of the city government. Thank you.